Now, if we are to discuss the 5, let's start with the height. There's under pasture management, there's something that we refer to as pasture wage. Pasture wage is that amount of pasture that the animals are able to graze in a period of a day. The amount of grass that is able to be grazed in a period of a day by the number of animals that you have. It's very important that when you introduce your animals into a particular paddock, the pasture wage, or that amount of pasture that should be grazed by your animals, should the pastures that you're introducing your animals to should be at least around 20 centimeters high, actually 20 to 30 centimeters high. But when you look at this particular area, there's almost around 5 centimeters to the ground. So if you introduce animals in this kind of area, then obviously you will not expect your animals to meet their nutrient requirements for the day in terms of meeting the protein and energy requirements of your animals, because there's almost nothing to graze on. So what is the advice we give? The advice I give you in this case is actually to close off this paddock. Close off the paddock such that you introduce your animals in a paddock that actually has enough to graze on. Then the second point that we've just talked about is the density, pasture density. When you look at this area, we have at least a certain height that we're earlier discussing, that at least there's something that the animals can graze on in this particular area. But at the same time, the density is high when you compare to the other side. So in this case, animals will be able to graze and pick enough in a particular area that they are grazing on. So in this kind of density, you will at least be able to meet the energy and protein requirements of animals in relatively a smaller area. But when you look at the other area that we looked at earlier, that area will need the animals actually to move longer distances for them to meet their nutrient requirements in terms of the energy and protein needs. Then the third point that we need to look at is the season. The season under which you're introducing the animals in a particular paddock. If it's during the rainy season, definitely there you expect enough pastures for the animals to graze on. But if you introduce your animals in a dry season, then the energy and protein requirements will be low. And in that way, there will be need for supplementation, because for you to be cost effective and to benefit or to earn significantly out of your dairy enterprise, you should always look at least meeting 80% of your protein and energy needs of your animals through grazing. So short levels of pastures mean actually animals requiring larger spaces for them to meet their needs. At the same time, you have to do a lot of supplementation. Then we also talked about the predominant species. If your pastures are predominantly composed of grasses, then there your animals will be meeting more of their energy needs. If your pastures are predominantly composed of legumes, then you have more protein needs met compared to the energy needs. But it is very important that you always balance the energy and protein composition of your pastures. In Uganda, the main or the most preferred type of pastures for grazing, or species of pastures for grazing, are bracharia. Bracharia is the mainly recommended because it is resistant to trampling, and the density, like we are discussing, is relatively high. Then when you look at which legumes to incorporate into your grazing fields, I would recommend legumes like, for example, desmodium. I've seen a few plants of desmodium here. So you incorporate a protein species, and one of the most common ones is desmodium. Desmodium could be silver leaf desmodium or green leaf desmodium. We're also talking about the species that is resistant to trampling. It's called Bracharia, and Bracharia also has a relatively high density. So the animals are able to meet their energy requirements in a relatively smaller area because of your paddocks being composed of Bracharia or a chifuta as the predominant pasture species. And when you have a mix of desmodium and chifuta, then you are at least guaranteed of meeting the protein and energy requirements of your animals on a daily basis.